welcome to you all to the Centre for Catholic Formation this evening. This is the final of 4 talks that we've laid on for the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the Christian Education Centre, the Centre for Catholic Formation here in Tooting Bay. Some 50 years ago today, Archbishop Cyril Cowdroy opened this building as a diocesan catechetical centre. So you're all most welcome to join us in these celebrations. It's a pleasure to welcome friends and, as I said last week, new friends, future friends to the centre. A couple of points of information. If there is a fire alarm, we will congregate on the far end of the lawn. Facilities are out the door behind you. We are being filmed for YouTube. Thank you very much, Peter Morrissey from the Diocesan Deaf Service. And we are being streamed live on Facebook. Obviously the cameras are pointing in this direction, so you needn't worry about that sort of thing. But you can watch it back at leisure, and welcome to all the people who are sort of watching this live. So just down to me to introduce tonight's speaker, and it is a delight. We met for the first time today, but I feel as though I know you very well. On bended knee. That's very true. It's very true. So it's an absolute pleasure to welcome our speaker tonight, Dr Pia Matthews, who a published author, God's Wildflowers, a lecturer in healthcare ethics, and an expert on disability theology, or perhaps we'll learn, perhaps not disability theology. Perhaps there's more than one. So a warm welcome, please, Dr Pia Matthews.
Right, my title that I was given was, and I'm reading it now, Disability Theology, Where We Are and Some New Approaches for Parishes. Now, I'm not one to criticise people's titles or things like that, so we had a little discussion about disability theology. And I was allowed to put a little question mark at the end of this, because there are lots of issues here. One thing we've got to think about is a lot of the things that we talk about in disability end up becoming integration. And you're not doing theology, but just doing some kind of social integration. We might want to sort of think about that. But my first slide here, stained glass window. Because it's not so much disability theology, I don't have the answer, I don't have the theology. It's more, there's lots and lots of different kinds of theologies. And I'm going to look at the strengths and weaknesses of some of them, but I don't want to look as if I'm critiquing them, as if to say there's a better one out there. I just want to note that in this glorious stained glass window, we've got a lot going on. And that, what intrigues me, is that disability kind of is taking off, but not quite. We've got all of these great insights, all of this lovely stained glass window, all of these different ideas, but we're still a little bit uncertain about where we're going. We don't have a disability theology as such. And we've got another problem here as well, though. Maybe like this stained glass window. We had a myriad before, but now we've got individual ones. So can we say there is disability theology? Doesn't that sort of set disability, people with disabilities, aside from everybody else? Like theology of women. Are women something different to everybody else? How does that work as well? And the other more significant problem maybe is disability itself. Are we comparing like with like? Can we really talk about people who are wheelchair users, people with learning difficulties, people with autism in the same breath? And that might have bearing on pastoral practice, catechesis, and all the rest of it. And then let's go further. Down syndrome, or Asperger's, or autism, they're not all the same. So even there we've got a difficulty, because we seem to be lumping everybody together. So we have to be aware of that. This is the attitude that I want to take from the outset, even before we begin. That there is no kind of them and us. There's not a disability theology, isn't there just theology? Right? We want to avoid that kind of them and us thing, because we've got very good theological grounds for this. Just as all die in Adam, so in Christ all will be brought to life. It doesn't say just as all, including people with disabilities. It says all, just as all. We are all ambassadors for Christ. Think about that, and perhaps you want to think about people with disability, how are they ambassadors for Christ? we are all workers in the vineyard. This workers in the vineyard thing was taken up by, in particular, John Paul II. So, in his encyclical Christi Fidelis Laici, he said, everybody's got a part to play. And he spent the whole encyclical saying, well, elderly people, you've got to do this, and young people this, and teachers that, and people with disabilities this, and a whole range of things. We're all workers in the vineyard. Nobody has got any excuses, all right? The next thing to consider, we are all in this together, if you like, is we say our Father at church. We don't say my Father, we say our Father. So to what extent does that underpin our attitudes towards not just people with disabilities, but the congregation as a whole? And the next bit I'm going to put on there is, Jesus has saved us, so we journey in hope. Now, I could have started this little session here by talking about all the challenges that people with disabilities have, all the discrimination, the difficulties, and all the rest of it. But I would like to start from a different attitude. The work's been done for us, Jesus has saved us, now we just carry on with the journey. Let's have a bit more hope and joy in this, an attitude of hope and joy, and not just look at difficulties. And my picture there, which is replicated over there, is a great diversity of people all praising and glorifying God. And if you look in the book of Revelations, that's what it says. There is a whole group of people, and it doesn't specify who they are or what they are. We're just a diverse bunch of people. And that's what we ought to be celebrating. This is the plan. We like to have a plan. We tell them we're from the university, like telling people where we're going to go. So we're going to look at where we are. And I am going to look at some different theologies of disability in order to critique them, but not to dismiss them. Because the very fact, like our stained glass window, that we're talking about this is absolutely brilliant. And I'm very pleased about that. Right? But I'm going to look at strengths and weaknesses because I think that's kind of a useful thing to do. So where we are kind of re-imaging of some of these theologies, and then relate this to new approaches. I hope you like this. Remembering. I thought that was really clever. Remembering. Because, members, and how we can remember people in all those different kinds of ways. And I can see all your brains working now. Oh, what does that mean by remembering? And that's a joy to me as well, I can see you doing that kind of work. Why are we doing this? To form missionary disciples. Now, what does that mean? Because many people would read that and think, oh yes, to form missionary disciples, how are we going to evangelise, catechize people with disabilities? But remember, there's no them and us. That's not what we're looking at, because any kind of missionary disciple has ongoing formation. You're not formed once and that's it, and then you can go and form other people. It's an ongoing thing. And we might want to think about how the formation takes place between people, not just one-to-one. I found myself writing this book, God's Wildflowers, picture, because in discussion with some people, they were saying, well, don't you have to be perfect to be a saint? And I thought, well, this is a kind of an odd thing to say. There's a problem for some people with disabilities. What do you mean that you have to be perfect? So I thought I'll do a little bit of research and see if I can find saints with disabilities and see what I can do with it. After finding 150 saints with disabilities, and there were more, I thought, well, I'll just write a book about it. But the point of this is that St. Teresa, God's Wildflowers, St. Teresa says we can't all be roses and we can't all be lilies. Some people are violets and some people are daisies. Then I thought to myself, oh, look at my garden. I quite like the violets. I don't like daffodils. They're very, very pretentious. You think to yourself, daffodils, trumpet things. First of spring, what happens? It's a little snowdrop. That's the one that sort of forges the way, and yet we all think of that daffodil as that great flower of spring. No, it is the snowdrop. So I think we have to think about this. What do we mean? Roses? Bishop? I don't know. I like the wildflowers anyway. Wildflowers have got a lot going for them. But what we're doing here is, and what we're forming people to do, if you like, is to glorify the Lord by our lives. That's what we're doing. That's what we should be doing. And just being fully human, just being the person God wants you to be, you're glorifying God by your life. So we can see that this is a theological enterprise, should be a theological enterprise, not simply an enterprise enterprise about including people, making sure that there's wheelchair access and things like that. You know, our job is to help people glorify the Lord by our lives. The next thing down, okay, we are not giving God to people. There is an assumption, I think particularly amongst people who've got learning disabilities, that there is somehow no spirituality, that they don't need God, that maybe they're just like the angels, that's another problem, you know, that as if they don't need any kind of formation. But we forget that in fact, God, I quote here from St. Augustine, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. And St. Augustine says that about every single human being. Now that should give us cause for immense joy and hope for our empty churches, because we can say about all human beings that there is that sense of God that people are searching for. I think particularly of young people. Look at me here, that's young people. No, people say they're leaving the church, they don't see any value in the church, and I think to myself, well, if we really do believe that God has made us for yourself, you know, our hearts are restless, that goes for young people as well as anybody else. Okay? But it also goes for people with learning disabilities. And anybody, I think I might be talking to a converted audience here, but anybody who has worked with any person with learning disabilities will know that that is obvious. What's not so obvious, and what I particularly like when I chose this picture, is here's St. Augustine, like with his pen in his hand. He's written quite a lot. And he's got this burning, blazing heart, which is lovely. Heart is the sign of the Augustinians. And you see what he's doing to the books. He's stepping on them. It's not about knowledge. It's not about what you know or rationality or anything else like that. That gives us an indication it's about the heart, which is a very Jean Vanier thing. So that's a rather nice sort of twist on what people do think in terms of faith or catechesis or anything else like that, that it is in some way imparting knowledge to people. Okay? We have to resist that, I think. St. Augustine shows us. So what about living by the heart? This is an interesting picture, I think. So you've got on your left over there a young lady. She's got very, very severe, complex physical and cognitive disabilities. No language. And then the person over here on the right, she's got dementia, advanced dementia, actually she's since died, and has difficulties with perception and all kinds of things like that. These two people get together and they have like a little Eucharistic service in the home of a fellow parishioner. And what do we see every single time? We see something like this going on. There's me with all my degrees and everything else like that, trying to work out precisely what the sermon meant and what the gospel said, and there's somebody who's actually acting it out. You know, people know how to live by the heart in a way sometimes we can't fathom. And that's what we ought to look at. But look at that heart again, and you want to know who's ministering to whom. Okay? Because they're obviously ministering to each other in some kind of way. There's a spirituality going on there, but also to us who are watching it, to us who are just sitting around at the Eucharistic celebration as well. And that's, I think, a very powerful lesson, because we want to think to ourselves, actually, who is doing the catechizing and evangelizing? It's a great temptation for us people who know things to think that we are giving to other people of our knowledge and wisdom and everything else like that, and to forget that more often than not, we're receiving back far more. The other problem is we don't learn about what we're receiving. You know, we translate that into our heads again. We don't think about that sort of heart and what else is going on. So that's the, if you would like, the attitude I want to start off with, a no them and us attitude. Might make this talk redundant then, but we have other things to say. A couple of other things that might be useful for people who are doing catechesis is to take some basic teaching, and this is from the Code of Canon Law, I shall read it. Christ's faithful have the right to be assisted by their pastors from the spiritual riches of the Church, especially by the Word of God and the sacraments. Code of Canon Law, it doesn't say Christ's faithful, including the say Christ's faithful, but not those with disabilities. It says all the faithful have a right to be assisted by it. Spiritual riches of the church. If you look down the next one, now this is just after a paragraph that talks about what priests and deacons have to do. But then it talks about other members, so it means the laity of Christ's faithful have their own part in this sanctifying office, each in his or her own way actively sharing in liturgical celebrations, particularly the Eucharist. So, that's a job for people, for catechists, for the whole community to help catechize. But now think about your person with disabilities. They also have a job to do. They also have to take part in this sanctifying office. Just as that slide a couple of slides behind showed that they actually do it, just we don't recognise it. So to what extent can we enable or recognise, or just simply notice, that people with disabilities actually do play a sanctifying part and not just the recipients of what's going on? Think about that. And this one is from Sanctum Concilium, which is the Vatican II document about liturgy, the very first document that Vatican II promulgated. And it says, Mother Church earnestly desires that all the faithful should be led to that full, conscious and active participation in liturgical celebrations, which is demanded by the very nature of the liturgy. Liturgy tells us we need proper, active, full, conscious participation. And to which the Christian people, no them and us, the Christian people, a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a redeemed people, have a right and obligation by reason of their baptism. Stop. Now, notice that, please. You have a right, people have a right to catechizing, a right to take part, but also an obligation. Now, I know it is difficult for lots of people, particularly if you've got one of the sort of a child that doesn't quite do what you want them to do. But that's for all children, by the way. But it is difficult because you do feel that people are staring and that maybe they're judging and you maybe feel a bit alienated, you certainly feel very awkward. But sometimes it's worth telling people, actually, you have an obligation to participate. With disabilities, no excuses, you too have got an obligation. Okay? A few more bits. Sacred ministers may not deny the sacraments to those who opportunely ask for them, are properly disposed, and are not prohibited by law from receiving them. That's an interesting one. And of course, part of the question there is what do we mean by properly disposed? And that's sometimes the conversation goes around that. What do you mean by that? But you can see that from the outset, there is almost a presumption in favour of people, all the faithful, being offered the sacraments and being properly catechized. And so the next bit, according to their respective offices in the church, pastors of souls, and all other members of Christ's faithful, so the responsibility on the whole community, on the congregation, not just the catechists, but also people with disabilities. So all other members of Christ's faithful have a duty to ensure that those who ask for the sacraments are prepared for their reception. Now clearly, ask for the sacraments doesn't mean say you have to be verbally to say it, because that's not the context of this. And this should be done, it says, through proper evangelization and catechetical instruction in accordance with the norms laid down by the competent authority. Again, you have got a right for this to the appropriate catechesis for you. And there's lengthy other sort of canons about what is the appropriate catechesis. So if we thought about this new approach, it's not a new approach. Look at canon law, it's in church teaching, it's church insights. One, all human beings are in relationship to God. That's an interesting one for people who are not baptized or Catholics or whatever it is. What do we mean by that? Everybody's in that relationship to God. And that means everybody's got a spiritual dimension, even if they can't express that spiritual dimension. Next one down, two, all are catechizers and evangelizers. And that's very much a Pope Francis thing. Everybody else is supposed to be involved in this mission of evangelization. But what also that means is that we have to let ourselves be catechized. we have to learn from other people as well. And I think that's a significant thing, and that's very much overlooked when it comes to people who present perhaps challenges for us because we have only an intellectual way of thinking about things. Number 3, participation is a right, duty and obligation. We've got the same rights and responsibilities. Them and us again. Participation is a tricky thing here because in church tradition, participation doesn't simply mean being there or sort of taking part. Participation is to do with being part of the body of Christ. It's a much richer idea than just inclusion, just to note that. So everyone, that's the next bit, has the duty to help prepare people. So if you get, inevitably, in a parish, somebody who complains about a young person who's making a bit too much noise, you say, well, you also have a duty to help prepare this person as well, so what are you doing about this? Okay? Everybody's in this. That picture, we're all in this together. Right? We are all in this together. I wanted to look at different theologies and theories, but it was actually quite difficult to tease through some of these because whether or not they're a theory and whether they're not theology might be a sort of moot point, because sometimes they aren't particularly sort of theological, if you like. But I think it is interesting for me to do this because it does show that people are thinking seriously, carefully and reflectively about disability today. And I think that's sort of worth, again, celebrating. So we're going to look at some strengths and some weaknesses. It might be important to note there that do we actually recognise what the church actually teaches? Those canons that we went through, did you know about those? Did you know about human right and obligation? Do we think about what the church teaches? And then the next bit down is, do we practice what we preach? Because that is a difficulty that people often encounter. And what I find constantly, people will say to me, the church doesn't respect people with disabilities. I'm thinking, well, do you mean your church community? What's going on there? So we've got a lot of rich insights and great things that the church says, but often are hidden, and perhaps that's something, again, that we need to bring to light. But just on the models on disabilities, one very popular and possibly the starting point for thinking about disabilities is to take a model of disability. I don't know whether people have heard of these. There are various models. Most people think in terms of a medical model of disability versus the social model of disability. So the medical model is the problem, as they say, is in the person, and the social model is the problem is in society. If we all had access and ramps, then people, wheelchair users, would not have a problem with reaching things and getting things. But the very fact that we don't have that is actually disabling people. That's two models. And the strength there is that it's given us some frameworks to think about things and to challenge things, and that's really good. But the weakness is how lots and lots of frameworks. There's the charity model, where people, I'm now going to mention what it is. Some things on television are being filmed. I'm careful about what I say here. Some things on television show people with disabilities as being to be pitied, as the subjects of charity, and that's the charitable model. It puts them in a sick role, maybe, and that might be a problem. But there are lots and lots of different frameworks. I think there's the biosocial, political, economical model, and that's got no sort of hyphens between it, it's just one long word. There's just so many different kind of models. But the problem with this is it's too easy for people to say, you are operating out of a medical model. And suddenly you get this kind of elitist thing going on, but I know better because my model is better. You're a problem there because you can't dialogue if you pigeonhole people, and if you stigmatise in a way people. Yours is just a social model, but we've moved on now. We've now got a biosocial model. So the models of disability are interesting and useful, but I am very concerned about the danger of categorising. We also might want to think about where does theology fit into that, because the models of disability don't seem to be doing very much theology there. And maybe theology has got better insights and better understandings than just on model of disability. On one point about the social model, that comes out of some of the language. So we have real difficulties with the language. Handicap, no, don't say handicap. Okay? But what about people with disabilities? People first, that's okay. What about disabled people? So currently the view is that if you say disabled people, that is people who've been disabled by society. If you say people with disabilities, that means somebody's got a disability. That currently is kind of the language that's going on. And that's a bit of a problem, I think, to say that it's just society that disables, because that's not necessarily the case. You know, if you can't see, actually, that could be a problem. Not simply because society can't manage. So, if you have a social model, does it really understand the realities of disability? I will just put in there one interesting thing. If you ask parents who've got children, say for example Down syndrome, and I've got a friend whose son has got Asperger's, and I said to her, well, you know, what do you think? If there was a cure, would you have it? And there's a little bit of a pause. And generally speaking, the answer is no, because my Charlie would not be my Charlie. There's something about this that makes him who he is, which is interesting, but it shows that actually disability is complicated, paradoxical. It causes us to rethink things. And that's another thing why I'm particularly interested in disability, because I think what it does is it sharpens up lots of our insights. It stops us, it makes us think again. And that's a very good thing to do. It makes us much more reflective. So after models of disability, let's have another one. There's a sort of big push for a kind of a liberation theology of disability, even if it's not quite called that. But there's this understanding that people are being oppressed by structures and attitudes, and that sort of buys into the disabled people who are disabled by society. What are its strengths? Well, its strengths, it's naming something. It's naming discriminatory attitudes. It is saying that there's a problem, and there's a good thing there. And I put in there, gives people a voice. And as you can tell, I had to put it in little sort of scare marks, quote marks, because clearly some people would say, you can't use that language, because if I'm mute, that's not a problem with me. I use it, I've got a voice, I've got a voice. So within thinking about disability, we've got a lot of problems, a lot of work to do in terms of language. But you can understand where I'm coming from. What are the weaknesses of this kind of liberation theology of disability? Is it tends to pit them and us. In its attempts to say we should be one and we should get rid of the barriers and the rest of it, it puts those who are oppressive against those who are oppressed. And so it sort of pits people against each other. Now, I don't know about you, but generally speaking, I find people quite nice. Overall, you know, I don't find that many people full of malice or out to, you know, sort of trip people up or anything else like that. So I'm always concerned about those ideas that you're turning somebody into somebody who oppresses somebody when that's not what they were trying to do in the first place. And the other problem is it's exclusive because it seems to suggest that only those who experience oppression can actually have something to say. And does that not exclude other voices? Now, I'm in an interesting situation here because people often invite me to say something, speech, whatever it is, because I've got a unique asset. I've got a daughter with disabilities. I can say something. What message is that telling people? That just because I have either a carer or that somebody with disabilities, that gives them extra points, trumps everything else? If we're all in this together and we're all out and concerned about each other, then we've all got something to say. This is not to say that we shouldn't privilege the voice of people with disabilities, because they're living the situation. But what I'm trying to avoid is that risk that says only those people have got something to say. Because I've heard some very good talks from people who do not have somebody with a disability that they're caring for, or do not have a disability themselves. So we have to watch out about that, I think. The other problem is, in terms of oppressive structures, it is very tempting if you go down the liberation theology route to say, you know, the church doesn't do this, the church should do more. And that again asks us to ask the question, what do we mean? Who's the church? If you remember my picture a couple of slides back, all those people that were with the church, we're the church. People with disabilities are part of the church, we're all of the church. So there is a difficulty here about thinking that the church might be one of those oppressive structures. Also that belies the fact that most people have not looked at canon law, have not looked at people's rights and obligations and have not acted on it. Because all too soon or too quickly it's easy for us to rush to the defence of people with disabilities and demand action instead of taking a moment to think about what's going on. The other thing about in any kind of liberation theology, the point behind it is that you raise people's consciousness because they might not realise that they're oppressed. You give them a voice, it's a kind of enabling kind of thing. But it's not always possible to do that. Some of the people with severe learning disabilities will not reach that stage where their voices can be heard. So does that mean we have a hierarchy of disability? And this is what I found in conversation with somebody who wanted independent living. So she's a wheelchair user, and she was very, very vocal for people who wanted to be able to make their choices, to be enabled, independent living. And when I said, well, what about those people who can't do that? Well, that was a bit tricky, because her view of disability theology or studies was enabling, empowering, so people can make their choice. Right? So my daughter, can she make a choice between orange squash and blackcurrant squash? I suspect not. But if I offer a chocolate, she can. You know, isn't it? Children will have go for a chocolate every time. But you know, some people just won't have that ability. But doesn't mean to say that they're not part of the story that we're trying to tell. The other one is a kind of theology of friendship. And a lot of work, Hans Reinders in particular has done this, and he has talked about it in terms of theology, not simply in terms of some kind of inclusion. And he talks about friendship and relationship. Can you be friends with someone who does not seem to be able to reciprocate, all of that kind of work. And one of the really important things about theology of friendship is it highlights the fact of loneliness. And a lot of people with disabilities are actually very lonely, because they may not think that they can have the kind of relationships, whether it's marriage or any other kind of relationship, that everybody else has. So loneliness is a significant thing that this friendship theology will highlight. And the strength is, it acknowledges that network of people. Yep, we're all in together. That's right. One of the weaknesses, I think, is that it concentrates so much on relationship that it forgets actually, in your very being, you are significant. Not just in your relationships, not just in the fact that somebody will be friends with you. Just you. You matter, and that's enough said, I think. But again, I put down communio, not just community, because there is this idea that we're only talking about socialising in community, whereas in church and theology, the idea of communio is much deeper. That is being part of the body of Christ. And that's kind of a mysterious thing that's going on, and it needs an awful lot of unpacking. Invite me back, I'll talk about communion next time. The last point, I thought I might suddenly sneak it up on the next slide, but I left it there for you to think about. Actually, we are all alone as well. And that's not to be sorrowful or anything else like that, but many people are lonely, that's one side. But also, if you think about it in a different way, this is what John Paul II does in his Theology of the Body. He talks about communio, relationships, but he also says we are all alone because we stand before God, just us. You know, just me will stand before God. So there is a loneliness, and there's also a lone bit that maybe we ought to be thinking deeply about. And I would say that there are a number of people with disabilities whose spirituality, or whose lives appear to be lonely, but actually their spirituality of aloneness is much deeper than, you know, me shaking hands with people in church. So there's an interesting thing, I think, that's going on there. Oh, vulnerability. I think this is the most sort of modern theology of disability, is to do with vulnerability. According to this, we are all vulnerable. Now, in some of these ways of thinking about it, people will say, actually, we are all vulnerable, and even if we're not now, we will be soon. You know, because that's the way that refugees of age will take us. And the strength of that is it's saying something about human beings, because they're on the same kind of playing field, but the weakness is, actually, does it trivialise serious disability? If we're all vulnerable, then it doesn't actually make any difference whether or not we're disabled. It also patronises people who don't think they're vulnerable. So we have got many people who are, sort of blind, and they've got guide dogs, and they can just have their own life, and it's not a problem, and they actually are not. They do not think themselves vulnerable. And that's good. So there's a problem about this vulnerability. And we might want to ask, is there an equal field? But in the same way as some of the other theologies of disability, there is this thing about the being doesn't matter if we're all vulnerable. Maybe. What about a theology of inclusion? This tends to be the language, particularly of schools, inclusive schooling, inclusive education. And people do use this language when it comes to catechesis because you want to include people. And it's a natural kind of thing to want to say, strength, call for action, include people, that's good. But one of the weaknesses to this kind of language is it suggests, I'm going to include you, I wouldn't allow you in because I'm such a good person. Inclusion has got that kind of, you can be excluded and only possibly will let you in. So that's a danger, I think, as much as I think that people should be included. And you've got a similar kind of thing going on with of belonging. Now actually I quite like belonging. It is true, I think it is true. People do belong. But you've got this tension because you're then saying, well, people have got to make room for you to find your rightful place. And where's your rightful place as well. And in some understandings of belonging, theologies of belonging, is it relies on somebody missing you. You know you belong when you're missed. Well, that's going back to that sort of relationship thing, not being for who you are. And again, who was the church who was doing the missing? I'm interested about this finding your rightful place, because we often visit different churches, so I'm often going to a different church, wheelchair. The moment we get to the church, this is our big chance to use the ramp. Had the ramp out for ages. Hosts of parishioners get around, get the ramp, get us out, and that's fantastic. Get us up the ramp. And then we are sent over, or I am sent over, pushing the wheelchair, to sort of the far right-hand side, so I've got a good view of the altar, that's lovely. The rest of the family had to go somewhere else because there's not quite enough room, but there's a special designated wheelchair space over there, in full view of everybody. Because it was trying to be inclusive and belonging, give you a sense that you belong to the community, by in effect isolating this person, pointing at this person and saying, that's your designated space. But I know what people are trying to do, and they were really good-hearted people, and I didn't mind, and we actually moved. And what we do is, my daughter can just about wait there and take a few steps. So at the right moment, usually just about communion, we get out of the wheelchair. Miracle, miracle, people say. Oh, no. So we just move to a different chair. But there is this difficulty about, the will and wanting to do so much, but not asking people, not trying to have a discussion with people about what is the best way forward. And that's part of this of belonging. Actually, people have got to own the problem as well. You've got to ask. So, okay, we've had a look at those few. There are other kind of theologies of disability. I don't think most of those things are a matter of disability theologies. I think it's simply a matter of justice. As a matter of justice, you treat people with dignity. As a matter of justice, you have a particular attitude towards people. And I've given you here about using Catholic social teaching. And I put it in big letters, because I like Catholic social teaching. I think Catholic social teaching can do far more than many different theologies of disability with their strengths and weaknesses, because we've got rich insights that are not reduced to one way of looking at things. Okay, so we can think about the human person, them and us, we're just thinking about the human person. And I have heard people criticise the church and says it never talks about people with disabilities. And my response to that is, it doesn't have to, because they're just people. People are people are people. That's it, they're just people. And because they're just people, anything that you do that attacks their dignity, it's against justice. Solidarity, that sort of, I was going to use the word brotherhood, but I was told off using the word brotherhood. So I'm just going to use solidarity. Solidarity is a good word. Solidarity between people, that we're all in this together. We are all in this together, not them and us. Subsidiarity, brilliant word, too long for Scrabble or anything else like that, but it's a really good word. That's an interesting principle, and this is one of the principles I think can really be heightened, sharpened by people with disabilities. Because subsidiarity means if you can do it yourself, then we let you do it yourself. And if you need a little bit of support, oh, the next level up will help you. But we don't send everybody in to do everything for you. And that's a very important principle, not just for people with disabilities, who we're very good at doing things for or doing things to, but for everybody. Everybody, not just people with disabilities. But the disability example kind of highlights it and sharpens it for us, if you like. Participation, which I've talked about, the option for the marginalised, I put that in, rather than just the option for the poor, is a significant point as well, and the common good, all of those kind of things work together. And I think that kind of theology, which goes back to gospel times, that has got such a good provenance, ought to be something that we should be making more of as a theology. Not just a disability, theology for the human person. So, if we think about this, I would like to say it's not just we're doing disability theology, apart from that, there's lots of different theologies, lots of different disabilities, which immediately make it difficult, but are we not just doing theology? Okay? So if we think about theology, we're all made in the image of God. That's what we're told, that's what the church teaches. The church does not then say, but only if you've not got disabilities. We're all made in the image of God. And the beauty about the image of God is, it is unquantifiable. You know, God is a mystery, so we cannot reduce it to thinking, oh, we're in the image of God in this particular way. Rationality, say. I'm not rational like God is rational. It's that kind of sort of intangible thing that we can spend a lot of time unpacking. There's a great diversity. That's my God's flowers kind of idea. This is what Aquinas says. Human race is diverse because it shows God's goodness. No one type of human being, the most rational person or whatever it is, the best seminarian, I teach in a seminary. No, not many of those either. So you have a diversity of people, and no one human being can express the goodness of God. All of us complement each other. And this idea of people helping to complete the picture is a valuable way of looking at human beings, never mind, including people with disabilities. And as Thomas Aquinas says, that diversity is part of God's goodness, that complementarity. The next one down, all human beings are wondrously made. God does not make mistakes. So, quote above was from Aquinas. This quote, God does not make mistakes, is from St. Augustine. So we've got a great tradition going back a long way. Because St. Augustine is saying, well, God knows what he's doing. We can't say God doesn't know what he's doing. And that, in a way, is unpacked by the next bit down, and this is from Gaudium et Spes Vatican II. Each one of us are wanted by God for my own sake. We're all unique and unrepeatable. Which leads me back to that insight of the parent who says, actually, no, I probably wouldn't have a cure for my Charlie because he's my Charlie just the way he is. But that idea of being wanted for your own sake is a very powerful message. And it's a message that we can all understand. And it's a message to tell people when they are feeling that nobody wants them. Well, God wants you. And people say, well, nobody wants me as I am. Actually, God wants you as you are. And that comes down to the next bit. Everybody's got a unique vocation. Everybody's got something special to do. And that's why that question, we've always been asking ourselves, God, why me? God. Actually, that's a very significant one, because the why me isn't why you created me like this, because the answer is, because I wanted you for your own sake. The why me is, well, what do you want me to do? And that's everybody's question. What do you want me for? So, just to sort of sum up those two bits, me and us, we're saved as individuals and as a community. That's what we understand by the body of Christ, the communion of saints, that picture over there. We had one of the slides. But the next one down, yes, God wants me for my own sake, and God loves me as I am, but the point is, he doesn't want to leave me there. You know, we're all called to grow in holiness. Every human II, and he was talking to people, they're called mentally ill, but people with cognitive disability, and he said, for disabled people, as for any other human being, it is not important that they do what others do, but that they do what is truly good for them, increasingly making the most of their talents and responding faithfully to their own human and supernatural vocation. Now, you might want to think of that in terms of sort of catechesis, because there is a tendency to do the same kind of teaching to everybody, all people with disabilities doing the same kind of teaching. And maybe this is asking us to think more creatively about what we're doing, so actually we're looking at the unique individual before us and trying to work out what we're going to do for them. So in a matter of sort of practicalities, in your parish, you should have concern for all members of the parish community. Yeah? The rich, as well as the poor, people with disabilities, people who don't own up, but they've got the weight of sin and malice and all the rest of it. Everybody you have to have concern for. What I'm intrigued at here is I'm trying to think of ways in which we are reinvigorating our parish. And one thing I've noticed is, if you have somebody with a disability that comes to Mass, particularly cognitive disability, you get gradually people looking out for them, and you get people asking them how they can help. So suddenly you get people aware of somebody's obvious needs. What is the result of that? These people become aware of other people's needs as well. Suddenly you become just more attuned to other people. And I would say this is what happens in a family. If you've got a disabled daughter, and we have, the boys in particular, not just girls, I don't have so much of a problem with boys, getting boys to care for other people is a very tricky thing with boys. But suddenly they look at people in a different kind of way. And they anticipate needs. And it's really interesting to watch somebody grow up anticipating what some people need before they ask for it, because they've had the experience. So there is something to be said about that role that people with disabilities, and I'm thinking of cognitive, intellectual disabilities, actually they do so much for us. They are the catechizers and the evangelizers, and they can make us into a more caring parish. So you want parishes to make a conscious decision, yes, get your ramp out and think about where you're going to have your, if you want a disabled space, but think carefully about what you're doing. Serve the needs of the parishioners, anticipate the needs of the parishioners. Think about that first, hearing loops and everything else like that. But also consult with people. There's a temptation for all of us to just do because we think we know better. Think first about that. In particular, watch out for programs that isolate. There is a great temptation again to say, well, this particular child, I was a Holy Communion catechist, this particular child was quite disruptive in primary school. I knew most of the children in the class were from the same primary school. And so there was a temptation to think, well, maybe I could give him his own special catechesis. Wouldn't it be lovely? And maybe even he could make his own Holy Communion and do that specially. Well, that's the wrong way around of doing things, because then you've isolated an individual and they're not become a us. What I did was I chatted to his mother. Now, what I learnt was his mother knew exactly about this boy. She could get his eye contact, she could get him to do things, and she knew when he was playing up, whereas all the rest of us were saying, oh, poor child. Yeah, he's playing up, she said. And the technique there was to give him something to play with in the class. So I make Play-Doh. I've got a recipe for Play-Doh, anybody who needs one, I'll give it to you later. Gave him some Play-Doh, but I gave everybody else some Play-Doh in the class as well. And it was interesting because all of these children were playing with their Play-Doh and concentrating a lot better. And he was just there with everybody else. And that was quite a nice lesson. And then I used that, what shape did you make out of your Play-Doh? And was that, God molding you like a pot? And you could do hundreds of things like that. But it is including somebody and not isolating somebody. But asking their mother, what would help this person? So find ways that the person can participate. Another church that I've been to, there's a young lad, clearly sort of hyperactive. He has got a job. His job is to light the candles at the beginning of the Mass, switch off the candles at the end. The candles are always lit. The candles are always put out. He's got his job, he knows what he's doing, and you can see the parish watching him actually participate in a way that is really meaningful for him, because he's done the job and he sits down so proud he's done that job. How hard was that to get somebody to feel really empowered in what they're doing? Safeguarding, I'm always just about that word, safeguarding. That's safeguarding. But also, we might want to think about the other kinds of catechesis that we're doing, because we often think about Holy Communion programs, possibly even confirmation. People don't think about reconciliation very much, and that's the problem about thinking that people with disabilities are angels. They're not, but they're also quite acutely aware sometimes of some of the things that they're doing. Think about marriage preparation. You know, people with disabilities can get married. To what extent do we prepare them as well? Care of the sick, we have to be very careful here. People with disabilities are not chronically ill a lot of the time. So you don't want to keep on giving them sort of the sacrament of the sick or anything else like that, casting them in the sick role. But you may want to think about facing the end of life, because people are too worried about saying that. And yet often people already know. To what extent are we preparing people to meet Jesus? In an appropriate way, obviously. And bereavement. To what extent do we acknowledge the fact that people face losses? It's very easy to hide loss, particularly from people who are not living at home, maybe. And so when somebody dies, you just simply don't tell them they don't go to the funeral, and you think it doesn't matter. And then this person turns out to be really, really angry because they think they've been abandoned. And when you say, no, Daddy's not coming because he's abandoned you, I'm sorry, he's died. Oh, that's all right then. Because the idea of abandonment is much worse. Death, we can manage that. And then I've got all of these other pillars of faith, because there's a lot of other things that we do in parishes. To what extent are we including people? Do we get people to help worship? Are we concerned about formation? But what about outreach? You know, what about community? Enabling people to wash cars, to earn money or whatever it is, to take part in all of those kind of things, instead of always doing things for them. Just conscious of time. So we're coming to a conclusion in a minute. Sacramental catechesis. We don't do enough of this. We don't think enough about this. Matter matters. Bread, wine, water, all of that kind of thing. It carries such a depth of meaning. We should be using that in our catechesis. And that's for all children. All children love to play with water, and all children understand that plants need water. And there's so much more that we can do in a touchy-feely kind of way. But also for adults. You know, that stone that represents all the difficulties that you're having, and the struggles and the sin that you can take, and you can put at the foot of the statue, or whatever you're doing. That kind of symbolic sacramental catechesis actually has great appeal to people who don't think they need it, because it's saying something and it's appealing to a depth that people haven't really delved in themselves. Accompaniment. This is a Pope Francis word. What Pope Francis says is, when you are evangelizing or catechizing or anything else like that, think about the art of accompaniment. You know, being with people, accompanying them on the way. And what he then says is, it teaches us to remove our sandals before the sacred ground of the altar. To what extent do we think of that with any human being? It doesn't matter what kind of human being it is. Do we think of that person as the image of God, wondrously made, and holy ground? Now, obviously we'll be a bit careful here. So I've got Moses in the burning bush. We're not talking about worshipping people, adoring people. I have heard that said, and I think it's hugely problematic to think that somebody with disabilities, perhaps particularly cognitive disabilities, is so close to the angels that they ought to be revered. That is difficult. People are people, they're human beings, and they need to grow in holiness as much as anybody else. Think about this as holy ground. This is my last slide. We're very good at telling people that God loves them. Right? Well, we can do that for people who are finding life difficult. God loves them. Whatever position you are in the parish, think about this. Do you know that God loves you? Look in the mirror one day and think, when Pope Francis says, when everything is said and done, we are infinitely loved. You can't give when you haven't got. So think about how you also are greatly loved. And that's my last slide.
Thank you.